Hi, my cat got bottom surgery and it was intense. When I get to the actual story part, it's gonna be unscripted and it might get a little ridiculous and messy. If you happen to like some of those more offbeat, personal, raw videos, I just filmed a ton of exclusive content like that for Patreon. Some topics include how I was recently diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, how I navigated dysphoria during pregnancy, and also I babble a bit about how I don't know what my pronouns are. I'll put a link to Patreon down below in case you are interested in any of that, but otherwise, let's get into this. Alright, so my cat did get bottom surgery. That happened. It is not clickbait. This is real. But of course, he's a cat. So when I say he got bottom surgery, I'm not saying that he got gender-affirming surgery, and I'm not actually truthfully saying he's trans. He's not. He's a cat. I'm just gonna get that out of the way before somebody in the comments is like, this person thinks their cat is trans. I don't. However, when this happened, it was an incredibly sad, scary, stressful, horrendous time, and the only thing that got me through it in that moment was by joking that I had a $20,000 trans breakup cat. And I'll kind of explain what that means as it goes on. But it was horrible. So saying that I had a $20,000 trans breakup cat added a little levity to the situation. It got me to giggle between all the weeping. Content warning for sick animals. Everybody's healthy and okay though, and I'm not gonna get too into the details of what happened because that part isn't really fun to talk about. And really, the whole thing was not fun to go through. However, now that it's been a year and all is well, I can look back on it, and in my opinion, there are some pretty funny parts, which is the whole reason that I'm telling the story. So I don't think the story is going to be a downer, but it does definitely involve sick animals in case that's not what you want to hear about. So, what happened? Basically, I am 7 months pregnant, and keep in mind, I only made it to 8 months pregnant, and there's 2 babies in my tummy, so I am huge. I'm also, emotionally at the end of my rope. My pregnancy was so hard. I was super ill. I was exhausted. I had so many random pains and strange symptoms, so I was kind of I didn't have a ton in me, and I was incredibly hormonal. So there was a lot going on. And then all of a sudden, there's one day we go to feed my cat Elliot. He's adorable. He's a little tuxedo cat. And he doesn't show up, and we think that's weird, but we don't think too much of it because every once in a blue moon, I don't know, a cat will be more interested in playing with their toys than eating. And so I'm like, okay, that's what happened. We go to bed, and the next morning we still can't really find him. So we're on our way out the door to leave for something when something in us is like, you know what, let's just make sure we know where Elliot is before we leave. And we find him, and he's downstairs, and he is not okay. He has a little puddle of sickness by him. I go to pick him up, and he makes this really sad sound. It's you can tell that it just hurts him to be picked up, and immediately I panic because I've seen him like this once before. This was not his first life-saving surgery. He is 8, 9-ish years old, and the first year that we had him, when he was 1, he got sick like this before because unfortunately it was my bad, completely my fault. I left a needle and a string out, and he ended up eating the string. It got tied around his tongue and it went down his tummy, and it just caused a lot of problems in his digestive tract. And they had to end up opening up his abdomen and taking it out. I've learned my lesson. I never leave strings around the house anymore, which I think is kind of odd because don't cats play with strings? They don't play with thread though. That cost $6,000 to fix. And Elliot was acting just like that. And when that happened, that was called a foreign linear body. He had a foreign linear body in his tummy. It happened in the evening, and we went to the emergency vet that night, and they were like, okay, we have to do surgery on him. We can do it here. It's going to cost $7,000 million because we are an emergency vet and it is 4 a.m. Or he seems fairly stable. You could wait a couple hours for your normal vet to open and they can perform the surgery for what we found out was $6,000, but is a fraction of the price of what we will charge you. So that's what we did. We ended up doing that. And I'm telling this part of the story because it informed what I did next. I was like, oh my gosh, I think Elliot has another foreign linear body, which made me so angry because I was like, I don't leave anything out anymore. Why does he have a foreign linear body? He didn't. So I start calling vets. First I call my vet, and they're like, oh, we don't have anything open, go away. Call this other vet. And so we call this other vet, and they're like, oh, I'm sorry, we don't have anything open, call this vet. And the whole time I am sobbing because I think Elliot is like dangerously ill and I can't get him in anywhere. And I didn't realize that emergency vets were kind of daytime services as well. I thought they were just after hour services. Like we went to the emergency vet the first time because it was the middle of the night, and then they had me call my normal vet, and my normal vet fixed it the next day. So that's what I thought happened. It turns out, I don't know if things have changed or it's just my area, but it is really hard to get a same-day vet appointment. And the only way I was able to do it, I swear to goodness gracious, I called like 14 places trying to get them in. I was crying. I was so, in hindsight, sounded really, really intense and probably overwhelming, and I'm a little embarrassed, but my baby was ill. So if you're a crier and you've ever cried on the phone, I hope my existence makes you feel better, because I definitely did it a lot. And some people were so sweet. They were like, oh, I'm so sorry. I can like hear the pain in your voice. Let me see what we can do. But nobody could help. And they were like, go to the emergency vet. And I was like, oh, okay. But it sucks though, because the emergency vet will bill you $7 batillion carillion. And the first time, sorry, this is the most ADHD story ever. I'm going all over the place. But the first time that we saved Elliot, we literally only had $6,000 in the bank. We drained all our money to save him. But okay, so we end up going to Blue Pearl, and we find out that he has an obstruction, which means that his like urinary tract is blocked. He doesn't get crystals. Crystals can sometimes be like calcifications of minerals in a cat's urinary tract that will like clog the tract so they won't be able to pee. For him, his tract just kind of gets like irritated and closes up at the end. And the reason that it happens a lot in male cats, I have learned, is because they have a phallus. He has like a cat penis, and the very end of it is the thinnest. That's where the urethra is the thinnest. And so that's, if things get swollen or if there's a crystal, that's like where it's going to happen. So he got really swollen and he had a blockage. And so they're like, okay, for $2,500, we can unblock your cat. It might happen again. They didn't really emphasize that though the first time. They were like, let's just unblock him. This is probably what's going to happen. And so they put a catheter in him. A catheter. Is that a pun? No, not really. They put a catheter in him and they unblocked him. They kept him there for a certain amount of time. I think it's been a year now, so I might have trouble remembering the details, but I think they kept him there for like a day, maybe a day and a half or two. He went home, and then unfortunately he was blocked again. He started having the exact same problems and symptoms, and so I'm freaking out because I'm like, oh my gosh, this has happened again. Like he just got home from the vet yesterday and he's already blocked again today. So we go in and they're like, okay, so this sometimes happens and we can either unblock him again for $2,500, even though you just paid $2,500 and it didn't do anything, or for $11,000 we can perform a surgery called it's a PU surgery. I think it's called a perennial I'm gonna look it up. Google says a perennial urostromy. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong, but the short of it is just a PU surgery. And what they explained to me as far as what a PU surgery entailed was because the tip of the cat phallus is the thinnest and where all the blockages and problems occur, basically what they do is they cut off the whole phallus part of your cat's genitals. And these were their words. They turn it into essentially similar to a vagina. It's just like a hole. Where he had, his penis, he now doesn't have. So he really truly did have bottom surgery. The worst part was like, they were like, it's $11,000 and once in a while a cat will still get blocked. And I was like, oh my gosh, really? He hasn't yet though. It's been a year, so I think he's totally in the clear. But can you imagine spending $11,000 on a cat surgery? Like, we ended up doing it, but it's so tough because he was my baby, and like $11,000, and I'm about to have kids, and it was so stressful. But like, again, he's your little one, and you're supposed to take care of him, and you love him, and he's been in my life for so long. And the reason that I call him a breakup cat is because I got him when me and my ex parted ways, and that was a really, really hard breakup for me, and he kind of really got me through it. So Elliot's always had a really special place in my heart, and I just like couldn't say goodbye to him. And again, I was so emotional and hormonal, and it was a really big decision because that is a huge chunk of change, right? Like a massive chunk of change. I feel so privileged that we could even consider it, but it was a super hard decision to make. But something in my pregnant mind just like melted at the thought of him not being able to meet the kids. I was like, we have to do it because he has to meet the kids. And I had like images of him like snuggling and headbutting the kids, and I was like, he has to meet the kids. Also, like, I'm not very superstitious, but When you are, obviously really emotional because of like pregnancy hormones in your body, or because of like a big scary life event like what's going on, you don't think like super clearly or how you typically think, and your judgment is affected. So I'm not usually superstitious, but I was like, and if he doesn't make it, this is a bad omen, and we're about to have kids, and then what if like something happens to the kids? I don't know. I thought it was a bad omen. I really wanted him to meet the kids. He was my baby breakup cat. He was also my little guy, and so we just bit the bullet and did it. We spent the money to give him his bottom surgery, and it was so sad, but at least I got to be like, we are gonna add another trans member to the family. Not really, though. My cat isn't really trans. I don't think that. If you think I think that, then you are taking this too seriously. So a couple funny parts of this story, though, is, this is gonna sound weird, but he had a really hard recovery. Typically cats recover, I think, in like, I don't know, 3 weeks. They say I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, which I might not be, you can take the cone off and they're pretty much good to go. But he would keep licking his incision and opening up and it would bleed even when he had the cone on. So his cone was too small, so when we got him a bigger cone, but then that like, it was like bigger, but it didn't fit around his neck, and there was a lot of problems. And even when his incision looked totally fine and he would be cleared to like not have the cone anymore, he would still lick it open, and then I would send pictures in and they'd be like, oh my gosh, he needs to come in and get checked, that's a lot of bleeding. So it was his recovery was really rough. It took 2 months, and you'll remember that this happened like 1 month. I actually think it took 3 months. This happened 1 month before I gave birth, so I was still like navigating this with 2 newborns, which was so stressful. But because his recovery was rough, I did a bunch of goofy things to try to help. So like I said, he could still sometimes find a way to get around the cone and lick. So I was so freaking fucking determined to save this gosh darn cat's life that I started ordering tons of different products and then making homemade products to try to get around this problem, because I was like, you are surviving. I am determined. This is my purpose. So I ordered him a soft cone. I'll show you a picture of it. And he'd walk around and look like a little flower. What I liked about the cone was it was much wider than his hard cone, but also it was softer, so it wouldn't hurt him as much, but he could still totally get around it. So I needed a cone that was a soft cone, but still bigger and stiffer. So I fucking learned to sew. And I made him a custom big cone. I don't know, like it reminded me of, I'm not gonna know the words, but those maybe like an Elizabethan collar, like those fancy old time collars, or maybe like in Jurassic Park, those like things that go around the dinosaur's head. He reminded me of either like a fancy old-fashioned aristocrat or a dangerous predator from Jurassic Park. So I learned to sew and I made him that. Also, I ordered diapers because I was like, okay, so if he still keeps getting around his cone, he can't get to his new vagina if he has a diaper on. But then I went to the vet and I learned that they told me diapers really aren't the best for them because their incisions get wet. So I was doing a lot of learning all along the way, and I was trying to do my due diligence. What's funny about that is, I was trying all these different things and I tell my vet about them, specifically a vet tech. There was one vet tech who was so concerned about me, who was assigned to my case. She was so nice. She knew I was pregnant and she was so worried about me and my emotional state. She would say things like, don't cry, you have to stay calm for the babies, you shouldn't be worried about this. She was so intent on getting me to be calm, but I just am an emotional person. When I say emotional, I just mean my eyes were super leaky and maybe my voice was a little shaky. I was never I wept at home, but not I wouldn't. I have way too much social anxiety to openly weep at the vet. I just, my eyes were faucets I couldn't turn off, and when you cry, sometimes your voice gets shaky. So that would happen because I was talking about my baby, and I would try not to, and I'd always apologize. Not that I need to, it's okay to cry, but I would always be like, I'm so sorry, I don't mean to cry. And she'd be like, don't cry, do not cry. You must stay calm for the babies. You have to stay calm for the babies. And then she would be like, if you get too upset, you might have the babies here, and I cannot deliver the babies here. And And then she was also like, where is your husband? He should be here. He should be dealing with this, not you. Where is he? And then I would be like, well, my partner works. They work a full-time job. I'm currently on medical leave. It actually makes way more sense for me to be here. And honestly, I want to be the one to be here to do this, because if I'm not here to do this, I'm going to be worrying about it. This way I feel a little bit more active in the process. And then she would like shake her head so mad at the husband I don't have. So she was very, very concerned. And then also there's like probably in my brain all these notes about me trying to make custom hats for my cat, you know, hand-sewn Elizabethan collars and diapers. I feel like super overprotective and obsessed and goofy and cryy because that's what's happening. And on top of it, whenever I show up to the vet, I look so disheveled because I'm very large at the time. I'm like at peak pregnancy and nothing fits me. I just look kind of like I am drowning in these clothes, but also they don't fit me around the waist, and my hair is like totally messed up because I am living with this cat in this one room because he has to be supervised at all times, because if he's not supervised, he finds a way to lick or hurt himself. So I am just like babysitting this cat, which is exhausting. So on top of being very emotional at the vet, I also don't look great. And then for what ended up being my final discharge appointment, I speak with a licensed veterinarian rather than the vet tech that I'm used to. And this licensed veterinarian recognizes me from YouTube. And she is so sweet. She is really kind, super comforting, a doll, really nice, really encouraging, answered all my questions, but I am dying inside. Because again, in my opinion, I look like a mess. I also can't help but cry. I cry like, you know, on a dime, and I feel like my face is puffy, my clothes are odd, my hair is everywhere, and again, I'm telling myself this story that there's a ton of like, client tried to put cat in diapers and made homemade hat for cat, all these weird notes in my chart, and I feel like a really weird patient client, and I feel embarrassed, and I feel a little vulnerable and super pregnant. And I can't believe that all of this is happening right before I'm about to, you know, say hello to 2 new lives in my life, to have two lives enter the world. And there's just so much going on, and I'm overwhelmed, and I'm really embarrassed. But anyway, I thought that was funny, and I doubt it. But if anybody from Blue Pearl Emergency Vet watches this and you helped me, thank you so much. I feel like you probably deal with a lot of clients who are emotional, but I feel I tried my very best to be okay, but there was a lot going on, and you all were so helpful, and I have a hard time just not cringing about it while I think about it, but it's okay, because after that discharge, I was able to get Elliot to stop bleeding and stop wearing his cone, and he's totally normal, and he's healthy, and things are good, and I can joke about it now. And now, after his, you know, $6,000 initial surgery, his $2,500 unblockage, and his $11,000 surgery, I have basically a $20,000 trans breakup cat, which is pretty funny. I'm thankful to everyone who helped me. If you've ever had an animal get ill, I'm so sorry. It is so hard and scary to navigate, but hopefully for most of you, what happened to me happens to you as well, is you get through it, you can look back on it, and it's kind of silly. But that is my embarrassing my cat got bottom surgery story. So let me know if you have any stories. I love hearing them. I love reading the comments, and yeah. Also, this was a long video, super rambly, really embraced my tangential ADHD. Again, if you're into that kind of thing, I just created a ton of Patreon videos that are in a similar vein. So yeah, all right, that's about it. Okay, bye. Oh, I forgot. I also tried, I tried so much. I was trying to be so creative and really think about out of the box, but also be responsible while I did it, which is hard because, you know, when you're not a vet, you don't, know everything. So I even tried this, anti-lick spray, and it was supposed to be, and I made sure that it was, safe for, cat skin, because there's some like anti-lick sprays that you only are supposed to spray on like furniture or cords but not actually on them. So I put that like not directly on his incision just because I didn't think that would be a good idea, but I like kind of put it in that like the fur and the surrounding area. But he hated that, so that was a horrible idea, and I never did that again. It's really hard and stressful. You're just trying to like do what you can to help, but learn as you go. And I feel like there was other things I tried as well, because I really just needed him to recover, and he really wasn't. I took a ton of photos of his bloody butt. I will not show them because nobody wants to see that. And when I say butt, I don't actually mean butt. His butt's just by his genitals because he's a cat. So, yeah. If you have any relatable anecdotes about how you have tried to assist your furry friend in a goofy way, that might make me feel better. Okay, the end. Wow, you made it to the end. Here is the obligatory part where I ask you to follow me on other social media platforms because it profoundly affects my self-worth. Just kidding, it doesn't really. But, please follow me anyway because that would be fun, and I mean fun for my self-esteem. Haha, no, not actually. I am truthfully totally indifferent, and if no one follows me, I'm not gonna, cry into a pillow all afternoon. I did that last Wednesday, so I think it's out of my system now. Yeah. Bye.